to company, does it have scale? Deal teams in banks cost a lot of money, So you really can't come to a bank and ask for $1,000, because imagine it going from initial credit, the risk team goes, if it's big enough, probably goes to board. All those resources, a bank cannot allocate them for a small transaction. Have SMEs, whether it's in agriculture, in fashion, whether it's in manufacturing, say, let's band together, create a project of scale so that we can go to a bank and ask for a sizable amount of money. In my own business in solar, we understand that very much, in that usually a solar project becomes very bankable from 5 million upwards, from 5 megawatts upwards. Now, not all of us can be IPPs. Some of you can be doing solar home systems, pay as you go, right? Maybe it's time to actually band together and create that scale. Because the danger is a larger company, if Zimbabwe's economy was as strong as we hoped to be, a larger company would walk in here with the scale required and take your market share. Not because they're large companies, but they've mastered the art of working together. We see that a lot in solar. You call a colleague, and this actually happened. Very lucrative a mining tender came onto the market. I called a couple of colleagues, each with their own strength in different parts of the value chain. They decided to bid for themselves. Well, lo and behold, the company was the actual project was awarded to a French company called Votalia. When we actually could have worked together, right, pulled our resources, our skills, our knowledge, our networks to achieve the same objective and have a share in the pie. If you look at, for example, I see a lot of ladies in here, I'm sure you buy fashion, and a lot of guys here, you see on Instagram, one person is selling this piece of clothing, the other person is selling that piece of clothing, that handbag, that shoes, that hair. Hands up if you've ever seen all those products and services on one single page. It's never that. You all work in silos, right? Have we ever thought to ourselves that, okay, I probably manufacture clothes. I can sell them to a friend that operates a boutique. But we don't think of that as SMEs. We want to manufacture and go directly to the client. But we don't understand value chains. One of the key sponsors here, PHI, I always try and reference them as part of the INSCO group. One thing they've taught me is the importance of value chains, the importance of working together. Even when you're seemingly competitors, you can actually work together. From the fertilizer, from the center pivot, from the machinery, to the power provision, to the specific crops they tell you to grow. And then they buy them from you. They find themselves in Profeeds. They find themselves in National Foods. They find themselves as stock feeds. They find themselves as every single product that you find on the shelf in the supermarket that has an agricultural base to it. Have we ever actually thought to ourselves how it goes from farm to fork, and the number of people that are involved in every step of the journey and the revenue that they divide, as opposed to me trying to be the farmer, the marketer, the manufacturer, the reseller, and if I really could, I'd probably open up a supermarket for ourselves. I've spoken of working in teams, and then I've spoken on funding, and then I'll speak of harnessing technology. We now live in an ever-changing world, right? We now cannot really go into a bank, right, and ask for services for our channel through an enterprise. If we ourselves are a group of youth or virtually out there, and I always like to pose that question, and I think I posed it to Mox the first time I met him. I said, outside Econet, can you name one company that we've grown from an SME to a large listed corporate in this country? INSCO doesn't count. Just one. I'll wait. That's actually a shame. Because it seems all our kudos, and we pat ourselves on the back, and nothing wrong with that. We've taken over a company that was started 75 years ago. But those are few and far between. How many SMEs do we have today? Can we say they're going to move to the FinSec and the ZSC or the Victoria Falls Exchange in the next 10 years? Again, I'll wait. Because we live in an environment, and this is also to the SMEs, and it's a stark reality. We live in an environment where the regulation, the rules in banks, the rules in asset managers, the rules in pension funds are anti-startup. They don't fund greenfield projects. So you guys are going to have to work together and tip that scale. And that's a sad reality. They don't fund startups. Some ideas that you have here, you jump across the border. I can tell you of Discovery, you can speak to Old Mutual South Africa, you can speak to Old Mutual Kenya, KCB. They have specific projects, products, services, and financing tools geared to greenfield enterprises. You won't find those here. So as an SME, you also have to understand the harsh reality of the market that you operate in, because that's the only way you can succeed, by understanding exactly what you're up against. You start with, it's more like, as they say, a good king never seeks out war, but is always prepared for it. Because somewhere along the line, that's going to come. Mark spoke of intellectual property. All those things are lessons that I've learned trying to build an SME in this country. And then we sort of look to our future and say, whatever business that we're getting involved in, what impact does it have on our environment? What impact does it have on our communities? Because there's no point in planning a 100-year business where we're not too sure that we're going to be here 20 years from now. And if it's anything to do with 2020, I didn't save up for December because I thought I wasn't going to live this long. So, so we don't know if we're going to live this long. But it's something that as youth or as SMEs we need to think about. What we do, what impact does it have? How to take care of the environment, how to dispose of waste, how to recycle. These are new lines of business that are opening up with all the climate change that's happening in our economy. If you look at it now, the rains are coming later and later every year. So water conservation has become a key priority, right? Water saving appliances. They could be your shower heads, your faucet taps. There could be water heating for solar geysers. These sort of new technologies or innovations could be the big businesses of tomorrow. If the previous generations made sinful amounts of money poisoning the earth, I don't think it's beyond us, or I don't think it's morally incorrect for us to make sinful amounts of money trying to fix it. So these are new innovations that we should also look at behind the traditional buy and sell. And of course, when we look at ourselves, and we look at most SMEs, don't be ashamed to be a briefcase businessman, to not have an office. Because if 2020 taught everyone is that you can actually work from home and you can actually be productive. A big office is not where it's at. You don't need a tie, as Dr. Lance Mambiani said, when half your meetings are on Zoom and you don't have the camera on. It's unnecessary. But don't be afraid to be a briefcase businessman. Understand your purpose, because this environment, if there's one thing it's taught me, that it is very harsh. And understand your purpose, and you have a conviction and a passion for your business, you will not succeed. You'll be jumping from one product to the next. Yesterday, Simba will be doing solar. Today, he'll be in fashion. Tomorrow, he'll be in mining. Tomorrow, he'll be the next big thing that's happened, because you don't understand your purpose. And every time you try and start a new business, knowing the way business works is going to beat you to the ground. But if you understand your purpose, you have that conviction, that will to succeed, right? We're all Christians. We could say God blesses us and is in everything that we do, right? It would be nice to go to church and not ask God for something, but say, you know what, I worked hard this week. Thank you for giving me the strength to do so, as opposed to always asking for something. But you only begin to understand that when you have the will and the conviction to know that you're operating in a harsh environment, you're a small player with very large competition, and you need to work extra hard in order to break through. Not all of us will make it. Some of us will, right? Some of us will have a great story to tell. But I think in the next 10 years or so, if we can look, as I said, at our stock exchange and say, these are 10 companies that started either in the 2000s or wherever we started, and as a nation, whether you're lawyers, whether you're a procurement manager in a big corporate, whether you're a banker whether you're the security guard or the secretary that's going to put your name on the CEO's appointment list, you can actually say, you know what, I played a part in the growth of this business, no matter how small. Then I'm sure as a nation, when you talk of SMEs, when you talk of businesses, and we talk of the economy, we definitely have something to be proud of. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for the opportunity. These are the nuggets that I've learned in my years studying Oxygen Energy. I hope that out of this particular conference, everyone can derive some sort of value, some sort of opportunities. We can inspire each other, and yeah, see you guys at the top. We'll be waving for you, you know, down at the bottom where it's all crowded. Thank you very much.
That was close. We're not live yet, right? I just want to tell this dude that I think you kind of like brought some conspiracy into this conference. He came up here with no shoes, imagine. So now everyone's going to say, Simbaga Romba, you know, Ajito Tainanta, I can pick up boots, you know. So, hey, man. We good? All right. Thank you so much. And if you're watching live, we're on YouTube as well as Zoom and Facebook. So please continue to throw your comments. Let us know if you're learning anything. Right. Without wasting any more time, once again, please can we have a round of applause for Simba? I mean, those were amazing nuggets right there. Wow. And don't sometimes just go to church and don't ask for anything. Let Papa do all the asking. Bring the offering. Right. Our first session is coming up. We have our first panel coming up. And to introduce our panel and also get into the topic, impacting SMEs, financing your business post-COVID-19 lockdowns, is going to be a brother in broadcasting. You like chicken, right? So we don't have beef, right? Despite the fact we're from different media houses. Please welcome our moderator for the first session, McDonald Gurura.
I'm here just to discuss something very interesting. You know, we started Sunday Tour about 4 years ago, and our core business at the time was airtime remittances. We are moving airtime across 110 countries now. So as a result of more of our customers saying to us, you know what, you guys have been moving airtime for quite a long period of time. Can you get into the money market, sort of our money transfer business? Because, you know, this is the demand from our sort of database at the time. So we got into it. And, you know, when we first started, I thought, you know, I'm going to fly back home. I'm going to have each and everybody jumping onto this bandwagon so that they become termination partners for us. But surprise, surprise, you know, we were not as welcome as I thought I would. You know, it's a sad reality, but that's the story for another day. But what then happened, and I found very peculiar, is when I called Dr. Lance Mamundiani at the time, within 2 minutes, he had agreed to be a partnership, he had agreed to be a Sunday Tour partner and our last mile termination partner here in Zimbabwe. And over the last couple of months, we've moved millions of dollars thanks to that one given opportunity that they gave us. It was totally incredible. You know, I think on a very personal level, I'm very indebted to what BancABC has done for us as a company, because we're growing in leaps and bounds in ways that, you know, even I myself am quite surprised about. But what's more important, and I think what's been, you know, with life, you know, the Murphy's Law, if anything is going to go wrong, if something is definitely going to go wrong, I clearly murdered the way it's meant to be have been said. But it was the case with BancABC. Several things have gone wrong, but several times and on all occasions without failure, they found solutions for us. So it's incredible. We are totally indebted. When we become a $1 trillion business like Apple, we'll have BancABC as the one person that opened up doors for us, and we are going to do incredible things thanks to our partnership with BancABC.
Fantastic. 1, 2. Hello. Good morning. 1, 2. It's a very good morning. All right. There we go. we're in business. A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much once again for attending this webinar virtually, or those that are here with us. Many thanks once again to BancABC for setting this up. It's truly an amazing opportunity for all SMEs and all involved for growth as we get into the conversation around financing business post-COVID. Many thanks for trusting me with this very first session. Now, Mox, definitely no beef, just maybe a little bit of pork. I'm given to that. So no beef between us, brother. And we talk about the new normal, and we talk about the new normal. We'll talk a bit about that after, of course, I introduce my panelists. My name is McDonald Gurura. I'm taking you through this very first panel where we have, of course, from Sandy to the founder, as well as the co-founder, as well as currently managing director. That's Takwana Chikaranini. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. We also have from the Financial Securities Exchange, the general manager there, Mr. Garikai Munema. As you might know, in Zimbabwe, there are 3 stock exchanges: the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, the Financial Securities Exchange, as well as the recently launched Victoria Falls Stock Exchange. So he's hailing from the Financial Securities Stock Exchange. Then we also have from the city of Harare, the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Mudariki, to come to just give us perspective. Thank you so much, Doctor. We also have joining us right now from the Catholic University, Dr. Joe Mazarura. A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. We're talking about the new normal, and that's a word that's been often used in this lockdown era, inspired, of course, by the COVID-19 pandemic. And Mox, you'll agree with me that many of the people that are in different sectors have joined the broadcasting sector in the new normal because, having read the news and, working behind the mic, you can wear your shorts and, you have your tie and your shirt and your jacket right here, and so nobody sees what's there below. And so people think that you're wearing a suit, but you've got shorts and sneakers down there or jeans or whatever. And so speaking of the new normal in terms of innovation and adaptation, that cliche goes, adapt or die. What has been your experience and maybe your counsel to other SMEs listening to us this morning, Takwana?
Okay. First things first, I need to just say thank you very much to BancABC for this wonderful platform. I think our journey definitely wouldn't have gone this far had it not been for what BancABC has done for us. So I think that's the first and most important sort of acknowledgement I have to put out there. Thank you so much. Our Send It To is really and truly doing things based on the fact that BancABC was the one company in Zimbabwe that took a chance on us. And I think the second thing, I think this is for my mom, just to... Oh, is it on? Can you guys hear me now? Oh, cool. Sorry about that. No, that's the story for another day. But like I was saying, just to thank BancABC for this phenomenal sort of opportunity. I'm just a young fella from a small township called Rumuka Kadoma. And if you spend 2 minutes there, you understand why I'm so grateful to just to be sitting in a room full of amazing people. So we thank you very much for that. And then this is something that my mom always told me that, for a young man who has his only qualification is a ZJC sort of qualification, once you sit on a board with people with PhDs, you know that you're in trouble. But I'm just so grateful for that. And in as far as your question is concerned, what was the question again?
It's around the area of innovation.
Yes.
And some of the things that you've had to do, during this era of the COVID-19 lockdowns.
That's true. I mean, we've been so fortunate in that we're a technological company, and as most people know, anything that's been done online has really and truly benefited as far as COVID is concerned. And you're so right, you have to adapt or die. We had a way of doing business which was very simple. You send your money from the UK, and our clients would go to BancABC and pick up their money. COVID hit around March, I think, and BancABC and all institutions had to shut down. And as a result, it was literally, we had to do something that had never been done in Zimbabwe. And it was more because of our customers literally pushing us, saying that, my mom is, is in a tight situation. I can't send money via any other sort of platform. Can you deliver this money to my mom? And this, was something that, you hesitate to do since you're just pretty much just getting into new territory. But we nonetheless did our first transfer. I think our first transfer, I remember it was on the, around March, and it was for $2,000. And we did a home delivery. And I can proudly say we're the only company in Zimbabwe that does home deliveries to people's homes. And we moved in excess of over 4 million now in as far as home deliveries are concerned. So, And again, like I was saying, it was something that was facilitated by the innovation sort of that BancABC brought to the table. I think in any other institution, had we introduced this to any other sort of financial services, I think there would have been a lot of pushback. But we've got people at BancABC that I've come to know, and as Blessmo, I need to give him a quick shout out to Blessmo, our relationship manager, because this young man takes my calls at 2 o'clock in the morning. So that's inherently it, really. I think you just have to be very conscious as a business person, and as in life, I think you really and truly have to adapt or die. And had we failed to do that, we would have been out of business for an extended period of time, and inherently that would have killed our business. So again, I can't overstate this. I'm very, very sort of thankful for the fact that BancABC saw something that they had not gone down a particular path, but were very happy to go with us down this path. So again, in business, you have to always be very conscious of the fact that it's the environment that dictates where things go. Failure to respect what the environment is telling you or the time is telling you, chances are you'll be out of business.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Kwana, for that response. Now, innovation is obviously not only affected business, but from a health perspective, we've had innovations needed to be made in terms of the workforce, in terms of human capital. Let's talk about the safety measures and some of the innovations that have had to come from a health perspective. I'll direct this question to Dr. Mdari. Excuse me, Doc, may you just press the, there you go, it goes green.
Okay, thank you. Humbled and privileged to be here to share some of the experiences that we witnessed when the COVID-19 pandemic broke out. I'll start by sharing with you a quote from a self-proclaimed Frenchman, Napoleon Bonaparte. He said, open quote, "Men are generally united by common fear or purpose." So what is uniting us? Is it fear or is it a common purpose? Is it fear that our businesses will run aground in the wake of COVID-19? Is it a common purpose to survive and be profitable and to break even in the COVID-19 infested environment? However, when the horses bolted in December last year, when the pandemic wreaked havoc in China, Europe, all news that was filtering down to Africa, it was negative. Business shutting down, people dying, and the mortality and the morbidity associated with COVID-19, it was all negative. And by the time our first case hit Zimbabwe, everyone and all the businesses, they were sent packing and also scouring for cover. It's because the business and the SMEs had not been preparing for the impending arrival of the COVID-19. However, we had, since time immemorial, planning and preparing for a calamity like this in terms of chemical, nuclear, or biological preparedness, in terms of a disaster of this magnitude. And we're happy to say, I would like to start by acknowledging the measures that BancABC took early on in terms of preparing the internal clients and the external clients to prepare for COVID-19. They are one of the institutions that has got a robust COVID-19 disaster plan, and it is attestation to that. It is how they've actually managed to remain functional and open in this COVID-19. However, we have coined this phrase, COVID-19 is a great innovator. Why so? It is because those SMEs, those companies that actually invested in strategies to remain viable and open during this COVID-19 remained operational and viable. This is attested to the number of cases or number of companies that plugged onto the online marketing and business platforms. and they remain viable. Those that had not invested in the online marketing and business way of doing things in the new normal, they closed shop. And I'll also give you a brief statistics in terms of what has been happening. To date, cumulatively, there are over 60 million infections and with over 1 million deaths. In Zimbabwe, we're just under 10,000 cases, and the deaths in Zimbabwe, they're just under 280 people who have died with as a result of COVID-related illnesses. If you are saying over 75% of Zimbabweans are employed in the SMEs, and we have got an established community transmission, how are the business going to carry on their mandate? How are we going to market? How are the clients going to access our services, our products, when we are not prepared? So it brings to fore what BancABC is trying to do, to prepare SMEs to survive in the COVID-19 pandemic. It's through innovation, through adapting to the new normal, and also it brings in a great deal of innovation within the SMEs. SMEs that metamorphosize or change their way of doing things by investing in the wellness of their clients would definitely reap benefits despite the COVID-19 invested environment. I'd like to mention a few SMEs that have done well. We've got a business that is in the medical side of things, that is manufacturing PPEs, and it's the first of its kind in Zimbabwe. Due to the supply chain management logistics constrictions, this company managed to stay afloat and also keep the employees getting their monthly salaries and also surviving. The others was the establishment of several labs, COVID-19 labs, that then tapped into the environment and then managed to also stay afloat. And this has seen a lot of business happening through innovation, through managing to navigate the COVID-19 invested environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doc, for that. We'll come back to you in the next round. Now, I just want to find out, from Mr. Manema, as we talk about the opportunities and the threats of that were brought forth by the COVID-19. I mean, of course, in the Japanese, the same word character for crisis is the same word for opportunities. How can some SMEs unlock some of these opportunities presented in these trying times?
Indeed, the COVID-19 pandemic has brought about a number of challenges in the way SMEs operate. But I think whenever there are challenges, there are also opportunities. And it is up to these SMEs to actually look at how can they tap into the opportunities that has been brought about. And speaking specifically from capital markets or from a securities exchange point of view, I'd like to bring to the fore a very exciting product that has come onto the market. We call it the Growth Enterprises Market Portal, or a GEM portal, GEM. And this is basically an online platform that allows SMEs to apply for funding, either debt or equity funding. And it utilizes technology. I think Simba here spoke about the adoption of technology as one of the things that SMEs now need to really focus on. And this GEM portal is a product of the Financial Securities Exchange. It's an online portal that allows SMEs to apply for funding. Either they want to raise debt funding or equity funding by actually listing on a securities exchange. And you can actually do it from the comfort of your office or your home, where you simply log on to the portal. You complete the questionnaire that is there, and the system comes with an inbuilt rating and scoring. So for every input that you put there, the system actually allows you to see how well you're doing with your application. Once you meet a certain minimum score, your application then gets exposed to financiers and funders such as BancABC, who are prepared to fund SMEs. But remember, when banks do funding, they don't use their own money, it's deposited as funds. So as SMEs, you've got certain conditions that you must meet. So the GEM portal basically helps to ensure that you meet those conditions through an online portal. It will be telling you exactly what you need to input, and it will be telling you how well you are doing. One of the things that we've done to ensure that SMEs take advantage of the opportunities, the funding opportunities that are there, is to actually include within the application process some market experts that we call nominated advisors, who will help the SME applicant to actually ensure that they provide the information that is required, and whenever there is any need, they actually can intervene and help that SME to ensure that they provide the information that is required. Because for some, it could be maybe they don't have the, for example, company registration forms, they don't have a Sierra 14, they don't have a valid tax clearance, and they will need someone to help them do all that paperwork. So we do have facilities within the GEM portal that will help sort of to incubate the SMEs as they prepare for being exposed to potential investors and funders. We will then help them provide the necessary funding. So there are quite a number of funding opportunities within the SMEs, despite all the gloom and doom around COVID-19. We have made it very, very simple and technology-based to allow SMEs to apply for funding and to be exposed to funders. Because one thing that we've realized is that there are quite a number of SMEs out there with very credible businesses, but they don't know how to reach out to potential investors and financiers. So we have come up with this online portal that allows them to do exactly that by simply logging onto the portal, www.gemportal.co.zw. You then complete an online questionnaire, and once you meet the minimum requirements, your business case then gets exposed to a number of local and international institutional and retail investors who are looking for investment opportunities within this market. So this is just one of the solutions that we have provided, and I would encourage all the SMEs in this room and those that are following us online to log on to the portal and see the various opportunities that are there. There are financiers out there, banks are willing to assist and to help to provide the necessary funding that businesses require, be it debt or equity funding. We've got nominated advisors who can actually help you to prepare for funding or for eventual securities exchange listing. Again, I think Simba spoke about the lack of companies that eventually make it to be listed on a public stock exchange, such as FinSec. And here's an opportunity to do it in a very, very cost-effective and technology-based platform.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mlima, for that. As we continue with talking about financing for your SME post-COVID-19, and just a bit of housekeeping, as of course we are speaking from the panel, just ensure that we speak into the mics. And the restrooms, ladies and gentlemen, is to my left, your right, just behind that big banner there, as we continue with this conversation. Now, the next question goes out to you, Dr. Mazarura, and there have been so many changes that have happened, and we know that in life there are three kinds of people. There are those that make things happen, there are those that watch things happen, and then lastly there are those who say, what happened? And in light of that, COVID just happened on all of us. We weren't anticipating it, but we found ourselves there. Naturally, there's a resistance to change that not only individuals have, but corporations have. How can SMEs now gear themselves up to be able to manage this change and to also anticipate some of the changes that might inevitably happen in the future?
Thank you very much. Am I doing it?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the question. My name is Dr. Surura.
My apologies.
I'm in academic entrepreneurship. In other words, my job is I'm a lecturer at a number of universities. By being an academic entrepreneurship, I understand the works of our entrepreneurs. The challenge which we seem to have with today's entrepreneurship, remember we've got two types of entrepreneurship. We've got what we call necessity-driven entrepreneurship. These are the people who are driven by necessity. They are poor, they are hungry. They want to escape hunger. And then we've got what we call opportunity-driven entrepreneurs. That to me should be the focus of this summit. We all knew that COVID was coming. Unfortunately, like what you've alluded to, some people thought it was a dream, and some people still think that it's going to go overnight. If it goes overnight, I'm sure there's another disease which is coming. Remember, we are going through what you call global warming, and global warming comes with a different number of diseases, droughts, and therefore an entrepreneur should be prepared for that. Being prepared is the best form of defense. How are you going to get prepared? The challenge which I've noticed in most entrepreneurship, they are scared of figures. They're really scared of figures. And I don't blame banks. What you want to tell is story to the bank. You got a project. The bank wants to know what is the payoff, what are the returns, what the gross profit margin, what net profit margin. If you understood your market. Unfortunately, most of these entrepreneurs, if you want to survive, if you want to access funds, you have to understand your story, you have to understand your business, particularly finances. See, you take your finances. I'm a lecturer, so I'm talking with that passion. Because I've written a lot on entrepreneurship. Normally, they take their documents to an accountant somewhere in Harare Streets. The accountant prepares the document, and then you take it to the bank. Look, the bank wants to hear your story from not what the figures which have been prepared by the accountant. So for you to prepare for the next generation change, you have to understand, I'm passionate about figures. You have to understand your figures, your accounting, your pricing, your mix. All these are very important. We are not talking of this fly by night. I'm sure the first speaker, I think, spoke about. How can we then enlist in Victoria Falls Stock Exchange? You can't. So for you to be a successful entrepreneur, whether you are in engineering, you need a little bit of understanding of maybe finance, maybe of marketing, in spite of your qualifications. These are going to be hallmarks that are going to determine the success of they are going to determine the future success of entrepreneurship. And I've seen, I think at Catholic, we have come up with a very innovative matters E for Impact, where I'm the business coach. What we have done, we are trying to close the gap, and which I appeal to you entrepreneurs. This masters is kind of a hands-on. We have come with a product which you, as an entrepreneur, I think we're looking at the basic qualifications. It's in conjunction with the Catholic University from Milan. What we are doing is we are incubating and accelerating, but more so we are preparing students by teaching them those aspects which are critical for the success of entrepreneurship. And for those people who don't want to embrace education, that's what we call the resistance to change. You may grow. It's very possible you can grow, but there comes a certain stage that you cannot live. No man will never live beyond this experience. Your business can grow, but there comes a certain stage where we now expect that you now need to understand. See, listing at stock exchanges It's not a very easy, or raising capital. You want to understand the cost of capital, you want to understand your environment, your political, your economic, your social, your technology environment. You also want to look at your internal strength and weakness. And these are critical ingredients for success, for successful entrepreneurship. I think in short, look, I'm a lecturer, I can keep on talking. In short, let me just leave it like that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mzura, for that. All right, as we continue the conversation, I'm going to take just 3 questions from the floor. So as we continue, you can just write down your questions, and the 3 people that will get some questions, or at least 4, 1 for each person, that will get to be addressed. Taquana, I'm coming back to you. Accessing finance has always been a big issue, more so during lockdown for those entrepreneurs that want to scale their businesses. But you mentioned the fact that from home deliveries, you started from as little as $2,000 to as much as $4 million now. And the kind of work that you've been putting in during this lockdown is obviously scaling of business. What is it about your business model? What are the keys in your business model that makes your product attractive to investors that some of our SMEs can, tap into in terms of their own business?
I think for the most part it's just common sense. What happens with anybody with money is they need to see an opportunity where their money would multiply. So I think as an entrepreneur, as the one lesson that I've learned is just to provide value. If you provide value and the numbers make sense, anybody with money would want to get involved. And that's inherently what we have done at Send2. We've realized that there is something here that we can generate money, and let these investors, people with money, find us at work. And as fate would have it, along the journey of us having continued with very little or no resources, somebody came to our aid and said, you know what, you guys have something special here, and the numbers pretty much make sense. And we have access to credit now in the millions as a result of the fact that they found us at work. This is something that I always tell people, when it comes to business, it's very complex, and too often what intimidates a lot of people, because I like to think of myself as a very ordinary individual, and when I get young fellas asking me, what do you need to do, just questions like yourself, I always tell them, get started and get better as you go. And inherently, once you provide value, people with money will always say, you know what, this is a horse I can bet on. So that's inherently as simple as that, really.
Thank you very much. Coming to you, Dr. Mdariki, we have a dynamic that we saw during the lockdown where you find on the ground, in terms of social distancing, if you talk about the central business districts around Zimbabwe, if you find around maybe from the medium to the low densities, there was quite a following an agreement towards the lockdown proposals, and you'd see that people were actually keeping to themselves. But now venture into the high densities, and this is actually a statistic, there was absolutely in certain areas no social distancing at all, because people still had to survive. People still had to sell their wares. They still had to go kumagaba and do their business. But how is that dynamic in terms of the health aspect affected production from an SME perspective?
As the COVID-19, heralded its arrival in Zimbabwe, in other third world countries, there were public health interventions that were put in place. These include the lockdowns, level 1. Level 1 meant, people needed to be under restricted movements, no unwarranted movement to place of work, entertainment, or transaction. And as we started having an establishment of community transmission, it presented with it challenges that then disrupted most of our SMEs. Our SMEs, primarily, they are premised in the areas where the customers are and their external clients are. And this was in an effort to cut the transmission cycle of COVID. And this impacted negatively regarding the successful functioning of these SMEs. However, it was also coupled with other public health interventions like social distancing, face masking, and also sanitization. So at first, it appeared as if it was in direct collision with the ethos of the small to medium enterprises, the SMEs, where we want them to grow, but the public health interventions were actually negating that growth. However, most people thought that this COVID-19 was just going to be short-lived. However, and it didn't turn out to be like that, and we are still within the pandemic, and we are now in the second wave, where if we didn't learn from the lessons from the first wave, we are going also to pay the price for not learning from the lessons of the first wave. So the lesson in terms of the SMEs is how to survive, how to remain viable in that discourse, in that situation where we have COVID-19 ravaging our communities. This is all about making sure that your workforce is free of COVID. They know how to socially distance. They know how to, sanitize. They know how to decontaminate the place of business. The initial protocols for that were there, entailed that once an institution incurs or suffers a case of COVID, they have to close shop for 14 days. And in our setting, closing shop for 14 days, it's not good for business. How are you going to pay your rates? How are you going to finance your operations when business is shut for 14 days? So a business entity that is resilient, that is geared to survive, and that has got a plan so to survive COVID is the one that will then remain profitable or break even in the wake of COVID-19. The other issue that we also then discovered from a medical point of view is most of our businesses didn't have a plan, a COVID-19 corporate strategy. The only plan that we saw, and is clear since time immemorial, is a fire disaster plan. That fire disaster plan is clear in terms of how people should move from when a fire hazard happens. If I can ask in the audience, what does it say once a fire breaks out? It asks you to run away, isn't it? You have to run away. So when COVID-19 came, it was a fire of some sort in proportions that are not imaginable. Hence, most of these businesses, they shut down. People went into hibernation. The lockdown supported that hibernation for a moment. Yet, there were no savings to support that lockdown. Hence, we came up with strategies of empowering corporates, SMEs, to remain viable in a disaster setting, to create SMEs that are resilient in disaster settings, to create workforce that is resilient in disaster settings. Thank you.
To Mr. Munema, and we're talking about some other alternative means of entrepreneurs and SMEs or SME owners or managers to raise capital for their business. You did mention about the GEM portal, but what other options are there?
I think enterprises, especially SMEs, have known or have utilized the traditional means of raising capital, and this is usually being funded from own resources or from borrowing from friends or borrowing from banks. That is still an option that SMEs might use. But I think we've now come to a point where SMEs must also realize that beyond the traditional borrowings that SMEs have used to fund their options, there's now the element of the capital markets that is also providing funding options. Statistics have indicated that in terms of financial inclusion, I think the capital markets, here I'm talking of the securities exchanges, their involvement in financial inclusion is as low as only 1%, meaning less than 1% of enterprises are able to raise funds through the securities exchanges. And I think it's high time our SMEs realize that there is an option or an opportunity to also look at how to access funding through the capital markets. And it's very, very easy to do it. For some strange reason, enterprises have always assumed that accessing the securities exchanges is such a complex process, and it's so scary and so daunting, which is why, like I mentioned earlier on, that we have brought in the GEM portal to try and automate some of the processes, especially the application processes, so that SMEs can realize that it's very simple, it's very straightforward. SMEs have got quite a number of assets or securities that can actually be raised to use funding. So you don't necessarily have to struggle to raise funding. You can sell part of your business through issuing of securities, or what you call equity funding, where you don't have to pay back part of that loan that you, because if you get a loan from a bank or from any investor or a financier, eventually you have to pay it back. Whereas if you do equity funding, where you dispose part of your business, maybe you sell 20%, 30% of your business to an investor, they then put money into your business, which you then inject to retool or re-equip your business and scale it up. You don't have to pay it back. The only disadvantage with such an arrangement is that you lose that ownership, because the other thing that SMEs are sort of used to is to being the 100% owner of a business. But I think, as most of you would agree, it's better to have maybe 50% of a big corporate than to own 10% of to own 100% of a struggling business. So it's more about a shift in mentality that our SMEs need to start thinking of how else they can fund their businesses, and equity funding through a listing on a stock exchange is one such opportunity that they need to seriously consider. And if people can just try the GEM portal route just to understand how simple it is to actually raise funding through a securities exchange. It's not as complicated as it might appear. Maybe it's because of the nature of entities that are currently listed on the securities exchanges. It's those big corporates. And maybe SMEs will then begin to say, look, we are not big enough to actually list. But I think, as my colleague here mentioned, there are now solutions within the market that will actually help enterprises go through the process of incubation and acceleration that you were talking about. These are all services that are now available in our market that will help SMEs to prepare for alternative capital raising. And I would want to emphasize that there are quite a number of investors out there, institutional and retail investors, who are now looking for alternative investments. People no longer want to continue investing in the same enterprises. If you talk of investment, people, we are looking at the same old big corporates. I can assure you there are a number of investors, pension funds included, who want alternative investment opportunities. And so when they talk of growth opportunities, the biggest opportunities for growth actually reside within the SME space. And it is now up to the SMEs to come out and expose themselves so that they become visible to investors. And the capital markets provide that visibility that enables investors to actually see the investment opportunities that reside within the SME space.
That, Mr. Mnema. And my next question, Dr. Mzurura, it has to do with the fact that one buzzword that has been there in the market, Simba mentioned it, Dr. Lance mentioned it, the word collaboration. How collaboration is the next